what did you do? What worked, what didn't? What do you want? What's it gonna take? Why do you want it? And then get to work. Hey, welcome to the Tom Ferry Show. Today, I want to work with you on a quick mid-year review. I know as this is hitting your email box, or maybe you're seeing it on social sometime around the 23rd or 24th, but think about this. You only have 7 days left before July 1st. So it's time for us to do a little mid-year review, and then more importantly, it's time for us to get laser focused on what you're committed to achieve between now and the end of the year, or if you're paying attention to the US, potentially between now and the beginning of the election cycle. So let's talk about it. First and foremost, if I was your coach, regardless of your experience, January through June, right? I know many people struggled, certainly the second half of March and April and May, and then they started to come out of it, and now here we are. And for the most part, we're back and we're being productive. Now, with that said, we still need to stop and say, where have we been? What worked? What didn't? What results did we produce? So I wrote down, keep it simple. You ready? Just be honest with yourself. In the first half of the year, how many closed sales did you have? Now I know for some people, you had a monster 6 months. You were able to pivot, navigate, and crush it, if you will. And I know for others, right, it felt like you hit a wall sometime around March 19th, or maybe April 1st, or April 15th, depending upon where you are in the world. Regardless, how many closed sales do you have? Then I want to know, what's the volume, right? What's the sales volume? And then of course I want to know, what is your gross commission income, or how much commission income did you receive? Now, you could stop right there and just say, okay, it is what it is, because this show is about going forward. This show is about what's next. This show is about what you're committed to. But as always, we want to acknowledge how we got here, what worked, what didn't, and then of course what we want to do differently. So you could just answer those three, or you could go a little deeper, which I strongly recommend, where you actually write down, how many listings sold did I have? How many listings sold did you have in the first 6 months? And because of that, how many listings did you take? How many listings did you take? And then how many listing appointments did you generate? Understanding those numbers and being able to say, okay, I booked 20 appointments, I got 15 listings, I sold 7 of them, and then boom, we ran into COVID, I sold 1, and then all of a sudden now everything is selling, right? As an example. I want you just to acknowledge what happened, where you're at, what was going on in your business. And then do the same thing on the buy side. How many buyer closes do you have? Then how many buyer opens did you do to get there? And then of course, how many buyer appointments? If you just do that, I just know as you do that success leaves clues, right? Once I can acknowledge, hey, this is where my business is, regardless of the result, whether it's the best ever or the worst ever or everything in between, and I'm sensitive to that, I still need to know where I'm at. Then I would love for you to take just a single piece of paper and write out the following. What worked and what didn't before COVID and during COVID? Yes, it's such an important exercise. What worked before COVID? Gosh, like my past clients in Sphere and referral business was firing. I was really catching on with open houses. I started a new digital advertising campaign, and I started to begin to see some serious results. I created a new referral strategy. I started my geographic farm. To acknowledge, right, what you started that potentially slowed down or fell off during COVID, I want you to be thinking about that. Are you bringing it back in the second half of the year? Does that make sense? So what worked before COVID and during COVID, and then what didn't work? And I don't want you to beat yourself up, but I do want you to be analytical. I want you to say, you know what didn't work? The market's been in a 10.5-year bull market, right? We're going up like this, interest rates are low, there's been no inventory, really technically per the KCM data that I posted just 2 weeks ago. What we know is there's been no inventory for almost 5 years now. So I really wasn't focused on sellers. That didn't work. I really had no repeatable and scalable marketing and sales methodology to attract more sellers. That didn't work. I wasn't even living inside my CRM. Now, I'm not trying to beat you up. And I don't want you to beat yourself up. But I do want you to acknowledge that, hey, I've got a short amount of time between now and the end of the year. And again, if you're in the US, I would call it July, August, September, October, and it's going to get pretty wonky at the end of the October month around the election cycle. So I'm advising my clients, as I've said to you a few times before on these shows, it's go time. Like, we've really got to step it up. Full throttle, all in, let's go, help as many people as we can. So, high level again, how did you finish closed? How did you finish volume? How did you finish on gross commissions? And then breaking down the listing and sales side of your business, high level. Some of you are going to go deeper because you're way more analytical and you'll break it down by lead source and everything else. God bless you. I love you. Keep it up. For the rest of us, let's get a high level snapshot and then what worked and what didn't. Just be honest with yourself. Don't beat yourself up. There's no value in that unless that's your strategy that it fires you up and you get going, then beat yourself up a bunch. All right. Now, shake that off and let's talk about the second half of the year. I think of so many clients I've worked with, and one comes to mind. He was a former real estate manager. He then transitioned into real estate, and in his first year, he had a wildly successful year, 62 transactions. I mean, bonkers. Now remember, 25-year veteran of the business, so he knew what to do, but he transitioned out of management and into sales, and he killed it. He and I were chatting one day, and he said, look, I want to go to 125 transactions. His name is Bob Kuiper, by the way. Wonderful guy. Bob, if you're watching, congrats. You remember this wonderful time in our coaching experience. And he said, I want to do 125 and transactions. That's a lot of business. But in your first year back, you do 62. It's a math equation, right? We broke down how many hours, how many contacts, how many leads, how many appointments, the math side of the business. We write it all down, and guess what, right? He comes out of the gate and he's just not getting the results he wants, right? Matter of fact, the first month, January, the only listing that he had, it expired, right? So suddenly he's in the Midwest, in the freezing area where it's really about generating a lot of opportunity to get ready for the spring. Well, by the time he got to March, yeah, he had taken a bunch of listings, but when he was looking at his sales pipeline, it was not looking good. And guess what? What do? Do you panic? No, you keep going. You keep focused. You realize it's like, do the thing, have the power, right? That wonderful Thoreau quote, do the thing, have the power. Do not the thing, have not the power. I said, just keep going, keep following the plan, because I knew he was building it up. Well, long story short, he finished that year north of 120 closed and pending transactions. And it all happened in a very tight window of time. My point to you is simply this. Don't get caught up in the traditional linear thinking of, I only have July, August, September, October. I normally do 1 or 2 deals a month. I normally do 1 or 2 deals a week. I normally do 50 transactions a month. Whatever your number is, whatever your normal is, throw it out the window. And instead, I want you to think about what's possible. I want you to think about the sort of the flight to quality that consumers are looking for today. The fact that I would guesstimate that 45% of all agents in the country have ghosted themselves, ghosted their business, and then by definition, ghosted their own past clients and sphere. The opportunity for you right now with interest rates and inventory and buyer demand has never been greater if you decide to get after it. So here's what I want to know. Number one, for the next 6 months, how much money do you want to make? Simple. How much money do you want to make? At the end of the year, in this 6 month, what is that goal? Now I'm looking at Tristan, who's behind the camera. Tristan says to me, I want to buy a house. And I say, I'm behind you all the way. What do you got to do? He said, I need to make this much money. And guess what? I know what I pay him in terms of my salary. And I was like, wow, he must have a side hustle, right? And he said, yes, I'm creating videos and I'm doing this and I'm selling these bikes and I get a referral fee, these cool electric bikes. And guess what? Was it 2 months?
2 months, 2.5 months.
2.5 months, he created exactly how much he wanted and was able to buy his lovely house with his lovely wife, Steph. Here's the point. He had a clear and specific goal in a short window of time. He had never done it before, but here's the hook. There's a difference between writing down the money that you want to make versus what you must make. He's like almost like giggling and smiling behind the camera because it was a must. He's like, I got married, I'm going to buy, he didn't say I want to buy a house, I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to do whatever it takes. You, my friend, need to give me that same level of certainty, of absolutism. I am going to make 100 grand, 200 grand, 50 grand, 40 grand, $4 million, whatever your number is. But here's what I wrote down. Remember, we all have in the back of our mind this beautiful little thing called the reticular activating system. You've heard about it before. Heck, that old movie, The Secret, was basically, that was the genesis of it. It was whatever you think about expands, right? It's biblical. Well, the thing I'd love for you to do is write down the exact amount of money you want to make. And then I love this old affirmation. I'm in the process of attracting X dollars, and everything I do creates that perfect end result. What if you just said to yourself, I'm not an affirmation person. I'm not even a very positive person, Tom. I'm just tuning into you because it kind of gets me going and gives me some ideas for my business, but I'm not a woo-woo person. Okay, me neither, that's cool. But you know what I am? I am a person that recognizes that if I want to hit the target, I've got to be super precise. I have to know exactly where I'm going. I don't say, hey, come over to my house. I'm loosely in Newport Beach. That would be hard for people to find. And it's the same thing with you. Tristan said, I need this much money, and that's how much he earned. Does that make sense? I want you to do the same. I'm in the process of attracting X amount of dollars, and everything I do forces or creates that perfect end result. I'm in the process of attracting X amount of dollars, and everything I do forces or creates that perfect end result. I say it over and over and over, and you know what happens? The reticular activating system kicks in. And just like when you say to yourself, oh, my lease is up, I think I'm gonna get a Lexus. And all of a sudden, what car do you see everywhere? On the streets, in the highways, in magazines, and on the television? You see Lexus. Matter of fact, you see Mercedes and say that even looks like a Lexus. That's how powerful your brain is. I cannot stress it enough. Number 2, in order for you to earn that, how many closed transactions do you need? Reverse engineer it. Average commission is $10,000. Want to make 100 grand? Need 10, right? Pretty simple. Reverse engineer it. Then I want to know what percentage will be listings sold versus buyer sale, right? Do you care? Is it 50-50? Are you 70-30 list to buy? It's your business, but I want you to decide. Don't make it a crapshoot, right? Look historically at your business. I'm 50-50. I'd like to be more listing strong because right now I'm writing offers and in many cases, they're not getting accepted. So it's better to be on the other side of the table getting the offers. So let's focus there, right? So what percentage do you want? And then the last question I wrote down, just keeping it simple, is how many appointments do you need to make it happen? How many appointments do you need? And we could break down the math. It's pretty simple. On the buy side, generally speaking, it's about 8 showings to an offer. If you think about it just in simple terms, right? 8 showings to an offer. But gosh, I'm 3 offers before I get 1 accepted. Ooh, that's 24 showings. It's a math equation. On the flip side, hey, you might be 2 listing appointments to getting a listing, right? You take a listing and it sells. So think about the math and really set a number that's a little outside of your comfort zone that you have to go fight for. Because again, the opportunity right now for you, the flight to quality for you is extraordinary with consumers right now. And TikTok, we only have a little bit of time. So here's the last thing I wrote down for you. If you look at if you go back the last couple of weeks, last week we talked about systems, and that probably your brain was going, oh my goodness, I've got all this work and I gotta go, but I know, but I wanna keep delivering value and help you run your business remotely and help you be as successful as I can be, and that's why I shared all those systems. Today, what I want you to think about is, now that I know what I want, you and I both know, the question becomes like, how do I do it? That shouldn't be the case. Over the last month, I've covered time blocking, daily action checklist. We went through the 4 most important things you have to do. We talked about, I'm just looking at my notes, removing resistance. We talked about, getting permission to go out and perform. I've given you a lot to think about. At this point, it shouldn't be about what do I do, right? You've got to start trusting your gut. You've got to stop saying, I don't know. And you got to say, but if I did know, what would I do? And just go for it. Right? Call my past clients, call my sphere. Done is always better than perfect, right? So if you do need help, call my office, right? I'm going to give you guys a special number, 800-954-0730, 800-954-0730 and ask for a coaching session. Let us help you get clear on what it is you want and what you have to do so you can move forward powerfully with certainty, because that's the game. 800-954-0730. Now, here's my last assignment. You and I both know that motive matters. No different from Tristan sitting across from me right now when he said, I want to buy a house. I said, why? And he said, because I wanted to do it by this time, and I got married, and like you could see this sort of like, it's gonna happen. It was absolutely going to happen. He didn't know exactly how. He hadn't even created the money yet, but they were looking for houses. They were going to open houses. Like they were acting as if it was going to happen. Why? Because they were motivated. They knew, like he's nodding his head, because they knew why it was a must for them. My assignment for you, once you say, I want to make $100, $200, $500, $10, whatever the number is, I want you to list out, you ready? 10 positive and negative consequences. 10 positive benefits for following through and making that money. And then some negative consequences for not following through. So maybe you write down the positive is, oh, I get to pay off that debt. I'm going to feel so much better because, a couple of those months were rough and, I had to dig into my savings, or I spent too much money on my credit cards. And now I'm in this position, I want to pay it off, right? Or the positive, I want to take my family and I want to go on a great trip, or I want to be able to celebrate this. And you know what lights you up, but be really clear. We'll do more to avoid pain than we will to gain pleasure. My good friend Tony Robbins taught us that, and we know that's the truth. So what's the painful consequence for not following through? What's the pain that you and your family will suffer because you were unwilling to adjust your schedule, or to create a schedule, or to make the phone call, or to shoot the video, or to follow up on the lead, or to say no, or to say yes, and be in action? I find that when I use the painful consequence, being a husband, being a father, being a friend, being a leader, having, I don't want to disappoint people. So I'll go do the work. So you know what I do sometimes with my goals? I go back to my family and say, if we achieve this, what do you guys want? And therefore, if I don't achieve it, you don't get it. And boy, oh boy, is accountability created. Does that make sense? You've also heard me say for decades, write out a check for $500, $10, $1,000 to the political party you don't want the money to go to, and then give it to someone that will send it if you don't achieve the goal. You know what will happen? You need 10 deals, you're at 9. It'll be December 1st and you'll be like, screw it, I'm buying a house, right? Like you'll do whatever it takes. Motive matters. Motive matters. Tick tock, 6-7 days away before the beginning of July. You've got 6 months to make it happen. So here's my note to you. Get into action. What did you do? What worked, what didn't? What do you want? What's it gonna take? Why do you want it? And then get to work. I can't wait to hear about your results. Guess what we're doing all of July? We're talking about your listing presentation on steroids. So get ready for that in your email box soon. Remember always, your strategy matters, and now more than ever, your certainty and passion absolutely rules.